amigos de Multimedia, yo soy Lino Rangel, seguimos aquí en la FIL. Ahorita nos encontramos con Chloe Gong, autora de Vil, Dama de la Fortuna. Chloe, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine, I'm fine. The protagonist, she can't die.
Nope.
Why did you choose these unique abilities for her?
I mean, I really thought it was a great metaphor for her trauma because, we started from those first two books where she's a side character. And then I thought if she is going to be her main character in the spin-off, there needs to be a character journey that she's going on, right? And she feels very, very stuck in the past, which we actually know because we read the previous two books. And so not being able to die, not being able to get injured, and effectively not being able to age means that she's been stuck at age 19 for the past 4 years. So it is very much this kind of symbol of the fact that she lives in the past. She's unable to move forward, and as a result of it, that is something that she really needs to learn from before she can continue on with her journey.
Yeah, before she grows as a person and literally.
Exactly. A literal growth metaphor. Yes. Yeah.
How was the research involved in situating this story in this historical context?
Oh, great question. I mean, the research was something that I really had to do a lot of before I even started because although the events are fictional, although the characters were not real people in history, the setting was very real. This kind of spy arena of people with different motives and people going in to investigate the conspiracy by pretending to be something else. That was happening all over the place in 1930 Shanghai. It was pulled right from the history books, but I had to make sure that the atmosphere was real, even if the people were not. So I did a lot of research by going into the library textbooks, a lot of hard research, but also a lot of research just by asking my family members questions, because although they didn't live during the 1930s, they have stories passed on from their grandparents who witnessed the time, and they had a lot of thoughts in general about hypothetically what would someone have done at this time.
And while you were investigating, was there something that caught your attention more or something curious?
Oh, that's a great question. There were, I don't know, sometimes history is truly stranger than you would think. There were a lot of, I guess, very depressing facts of history. This was a time where the British and the French were in a sense occupying Shanghai, even though it was not technically occupied. So there were a lot of dark aspects of history where the local people just could not live as though they were the people of the city. But what is the strangest thing that I've encountered? That is a great question. There was once where I was reading old newspapers, just to see what people were writing about at that time. And on the main front page, it was reporting on the latest battle while the Civil War was going on. And on a tiny, tiny paragraph at the very bottom, it was man electrocuted trying to trim fence. And I just thought that was so 1930s, There were just no safety mechanisms in place yet. They were just trimming hedges and getting electrocuted. Yeah.
And the protagonist, Rosalind Lang, how did you approach developing these internal conflicts in this story?
Yeah, I mean, so much of it, right, is about her learning. As mentioned before, her growing journey on a metaphorical sense and the literal, her powers sense. I wanted it to feel as though, in the beginning, she is someone that we don't necessarily understand why she does what she does, but as the story goes on, you realize, yes, she comes across as a little mean, a little prickly, but that's only because the world has not treated her very fairly. Prior to the start of this book, she's just been given a lot of betrayal, a lot of people who are just using her. And as we hit this book, if given love instead of hatred, who will she turn into? Will she be someone who you can actually cheer for and root for? And when you do see the world from her eyes, hopefully she becomes a lot more sympathetic. You start to understand, maybe she lashes out not because she's just a mean person, but because she's been hurt, and that's how she protects herself.
And how did you build this dynamic between Rosalind and Orion? How did you build that dynamic? Because they seem to be very different.
They are such different people, and I think that's the most fun way to have two characters interact. I knew that they were going to be fake married, you know, because that creates a lot of conflict. And I knew that they were, in a way, polar opposites, right? Like, Rosalind very much wears her emotions on the inside. She likes to hide things. And Orion is such a, like, you can see everything on his face. Like, he's just out there all the time. But at the same time, that almost means he's harder to read because he puts on a bit of a front. You know, he's always trying to make other people happy. And on the inside, he's very sad himself. So yeah, I think having two opposite characters means that you can really play into that dynamic and make it so, you know, they get to know each other by showing different sides of themselves.
And how important are the historical context in your books in general? Not only in this one, but in the prior ones.
Oh, so important. I mean, the historical context really, it's the backbone of the story. You know, the story only comes about because of the historical context. Like, the plot of FIL y Lino is very much about a conspiracy in Shanghai. A lot of people are mysteriously dying, and their government sends them to investigate because they believe it's an effort of the Japanese Empire. And so in real history, in 1931, the Japanese Empire marches into Manchuria and starts, you know, what will be the invasion of China, and then what will kick off World War II in the Pacific. And so, you know, this plot could only come about because of the true history. And I think as any sort of like group of people that have descended from the people that experience sort of history, you know, like some of my family members lived through this, and I really do want to, you know, depict the world that they had to live through. And yes, it is very dark, but it doesn't mean there is no like story and love to be found in that. Yeah.
And before we finish, for the ones that haven't read it yet, but they are fans of the prior books, what can they expect from this?
Oh, great question. You can expect a bit of a genre shift. I wanted it to feel a little different from the previous two books. It's not so different that it's, you know, a different world entirely. It's obviously still the same world, a lot of the same characters, but I did want it to feel a bit more of a spy thriller, less of a fantasy. It's also adapted off of Shakespeare's As You Like It, which is a comedy. So I do think this is a much funnier book. There are a lot more jokes, a lot more moments that feel very slapstick as expected in Shakespearean comedies. So yeah, I'm really excited for people to read it.
We are excited. Thank you. Y bueno, amigos, eso ha sido todo. No olviden leer Bill, Dama de la Fortuna. Encuéntranlo aquí en la FIL. Y bueno, nos seguiremos viendo. Yo soy Lino Rangel, con imágenes de Raúl Soto para Multimedia GDL. Adiós.